All right. Hey, everybody in the chat, can you just let us know if you can hear us? Yes. Hi. Wow.
Hello.
Hi.
Hope you're all doing well.
All right, everybody on the chat. Nice to see you, wherever you are in the world. Now I can. All right. All right. Good feedback from the chat. All right. Chat's hot.
Glad everyone's excited.
And I think the snowstorm scared a lot of people away.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people who are supposed to be here in person are messaging us from the chat. Well, without much further ado, let's get after it. Welcome back for everybody who's been in the room before or been online. I think we're looking at that camera right back there. So right over Johnny's handsome face. But yeah, so welcome back. It's pretty cool to think that we did the first one of these a year ago. It was last March with Mario Rodriguez from Forseti Protection and Lauren Lewis from Staff Buffalo. And now we're back a year later with what we'll call some progress in New York State. And, with the hope that 2023 is going to be a more progressive year. But, for everybody, thanks for tuning in online. As always, if you're in the audience and you guys have questions in person, give me a wink or something like that, and I'll try to call on you. I won't snub Tyler Shaw like I have in my last 3 presentations. And then if you've watched one of these before, I'm normally over there, but because I didn't want this to look like an FBI interrogation from Emily, I'm joining her on the ground floor today. So if you do have questions, throw them in the chat. Serene, who's in the back of the room, who will wave at, but she's waving at you through me. Yeah. She's going to monitor those. Feel free to throw those Q&A in the actual question and answer box. And if we don't get to them during the presentation, we'll get to them after the presentation. All right, enough of the intro stuff, or enough of the planning stuff. So what are we talking about today? So Johnny Shabbat in the audience asked to talk about real estate. We do have to stick a little bit to the actual title of the program so we can talk real estate after the fact. But this is Lippis Mathias, LLP, Cannabis Practice Team, New York State Adult Use Licensing Series Part 5, which is pretty cool that we've made it a full year now. We're back in action. And the title of this one is Emerging Market Trends and the Importance of Marketing for Retailers. So we're focusing primarily on the dispensary space today, but then obviously, seeing where the other types of licensees and non-licensees kind of touch these retailers, right?
The title will be in the quiz at the end, so make sure you remember that.
So to my left and to the camera's right, I've got Emily Tuttle from Springbig. I'm gonna read you guys Emily's very impressive professional bio. I might get into mine, but after that, we're gonna kind of introduce ourselves a little bit more personally, because in the end, nobody really, you can look this stuff up online. And in the end, this is supposed to be a conversation, not just we're not gonna get the chalkboard out and actually draw and lecture you guys. So here's Emily's bio. Emily Tuttle is a dedicated cannabis professional who has been in the space for about 4 years. She has experience in both the ancillary and tech sides of the industry. She currently covers the emerging markets territories at Springbig, working with both established and prospective cannabis business owners to get their marketing plans up and running. Emily is most in her element when engaging in people-based work, including building lasting industry relationships and collaborating with our amazing partner companies. Hire her, Springbig.
Do you want me to read yours? Is it weird?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, now on to Joe's very impressive bio. Joe is an attorney with Lippis Mathias Corporate Practice Team, assists clients with mergers and acquisitions, business formation and structuring, licensing, contract review, and other general matters. As a member of the firm's cannabis practice team, Joe advises clients on the full spectrum of New York State's cannabis program, medical cannabinoid, I always mess that word up, cannabinoid, hemp, and adult use, and has prepared adult use applications for conditional cultivation, processing, and retail dispensary applicants. He also negotiates and drafts agreements for both plant touching and non-plant touching businesses, and regularly consults on ever-changing regulatory landscape facing cannabis entrepreneurs in New York and across the country. Very impressive, this one.
It's a long one. Anyways, that's kind of the professional side of things that you can see online, but I think the personal side is the most important thing. So Emily, kind of talk about first, give us a little bit, we're going to talk more about what Springbig does, but talk about yourself, your journey in cannabis, and then how it brought you to Springbig and what you do.
Definitely. So cannabis affects my life both professionally and deeply personally as well. I'm a medical patient. So for me, there's, that kind of plug-in. That's how I started sort of exploring into the industry. I used to work in healthcare SaaS technology before, snooze, and got into the industry about 4 years ago on the ancillary technical side in the hemp industry. So I worked for someone who created drying equipment for large scale cannabis manufacturing. So I've had the experience of, hemp farmers driving truckloads of hundreds of pounds of sticky plant into the facility, doing all the trimming, all that stuff. So that was like my first kind of experience. And then COVID happened, lost the job there, right? As happened to so many people. And after that, I found Springbig, and Springbig is an amazing company. We are a publicly traded company. We are cannabis specific marketing CRM. So what we do at a very high level, and we'll get into it, but we integrate within your point of sale and e-commerce platforms, pull that information for marketing. We're in every single state where there is a cannabis program. Teams East Coast, West Coast, we're up in Canada as well. So we're really entrenched in the industry on all sides, and our platform has multi-purposes. It's not just communications marketing, it's also app marketing. We build apps for retailers and brands. We do work in the CBD space as well. We have all different kinds of features for loyalty programs, data analytics, referral programs. We really just want to help you not only attain the customer base that you want with data collection tools, but additionally retention, right? Retention is the most important part, especially in a competitive landscape. So that's high level.
It's pretty high level.
Pretty high level.
So as the lawyer in the room, I'm going to try to talk less than Emily because she's really the important person here. And she has the experience in other industries and other states. I think you were telling me earlier today that Springbig's in 80% of retail dispensaries right now.
We work with 80% of the retailers on the ACOI. And then additionally, our team up in Canada also has big market share up there as well.
So she knows what she's talking about much more than I do. So listen to her, if nothing else, and pay attention when Emily's talking. What we need to do is so the goal for today is really to talk about how different dispensary owners and either existing dispensary owners, current card licensees, and hopeful card applicants, as well as the future, just annual or full or permanent license applicants, licensees are going to be able to use marketing to their advantage in the dispensary space. But this is the boring part of the presentation where we kind of actually have to talk about where we stand in New York State. And, everybody in the audience, please do your best to keep your grumbles to a minimum because we're optimists here and we're going to have a good year in 2023. I learned a word from my friend in the audience yesterday. It says we're going to manifest something. So I'm going to try to manifest a good year with this presentation. And hopefully that pays dividends to everybody in the audience. So where are we at? So a quick recap of 2022 is we see the emergence of the conditional market. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the conditional market is kind of this gap filler market that the state creates due to delays that were caused by a certain governor resigning from office and necessary political appointments not happening by the end of the legislative term in 2021, when the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, our state's legalization bill, actually gets passed. So because we have a 6-month delay in making the appointments to Cannabis Control Board and Office of Cannabis Management, we need to make up ground. And so we do that in January of last year when the conditional adult use cultivator and conditional adult use processor are basically there's an amendment to the MRTA that's passed, and I believe it was either late January, early February last year. The problem is if you're going to license cultivators and processors, you also need to license the people who are going to sell the product these folks are growing and manufacturing. So what do? As opposed to saying, hey, you were a prior hemp retailer in the same way that they did that for cultivation and processing, they say, we're going to do something different. And this is where you get the card license, conditional adult use retail dispensary license, which really is it has become a heck of a topic. I've talked about it a lot more than I ever would, and I'll get into that in a second, but it's basically reserved for two specific groups. One, a qualifying nonprofit, which is a nonprofit that has served historically discriminated against cannabis populations. Hence, we see Housing Works is the first dispensary that opens in New York State, December 29th, 2022. Then you also have your justice involved individual who is also an owner of a qualifying business. So this is an individual who either he or she or that person's close relative had a cannabis conviction, not an ACD, not an arrest, had to have a conviction. I know, for everybody who's online, that was a very difficult part of applications. That's something we're still dealing with to this day with supplemental submissions. But in addition to the conviction, you also had to demonstrate 10% ownership of a business that had net profits for 2 years while you had that 10% ownership. Super easy, no problem. You got your tax forms, you call your accountant. Great. We get 900 applications. This is supposed to be working really well. We get seeds in the ground in April with our first licensees. We get our processors license in the fall. We're going to get our dispensaries online. And then all of a sudden, we have a gentleman in Michigan who takes some issue with the card program and says, hey, that's discriminatory against me because I have a Michigan focused cannabis arrest and conviction, not a New York State cannabis conviction. Therefore, you're discriminating against me under the Commerce Clause, and the whole card program should be enjoined. Well, no, actually not the whole card program, but just in the 5 regions where I selected. That's a standing issue. Our litigators downstairs can tell you all about that. We're not going to get it in today. And District Judge Gary Sharp says, hey, guy from Michigan, Verisight Company, you're right. 5 regions, including the one we're sitting in right now and the one right next to us, Western New York, Finger Lakes, Central New York, Mid-Hudson, the one that stings the most for Office of Cannabis Management, everybody's sweetheart and everybody's favorite, Brooklyn. Brooklyn gets enjoined, meaning while you can award license applications, those individuals who applied for licenses in those specific regions cannot open because those were the 5 ranked regions of the company from Michigan. I know you've heard this spiel. Thank you, everybody in the audience who's heard this from me before, even most recently, as I think last week.
Make it make sense.
If it makes sense, hopefully I've done this a few times, so hopefully I'm getting better at this. So where does that leave us? That injunction comes down in November. The state appeals it. We get, like I said, we get 1 dispensary opened up on January 29, 2022. We saved Governor Hochul's promise that there will be retail cannabis sales in 2022. Well, where do we stand and what does this all mean? Well, it's March, right? Pi Day, it's Pi Day, sorry. Happy Pi Day, everybody. So Pi Day 2023, where are we at? We've got 4 actually open dispensaries, technically 3. One of them is looking for a permanent location. 3 of those locations are within about a block and a half of one another in Greenwich Village. Great, I'm really happy Manhattan's got legal cannabis. The closest one to us in Western New York is in Binghamton. As much as I love Binghamton, that is a long drive. And the hope is that the state has appealed the Verisight decision and to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals in New York City. Their first papers, I looked this up right before just to make sure I was paying attention. March 23rd, so in 9 days, the state's submitting their first appeal paperwork to the Second Circuit. Any litigator here or anywhere else will tell you that the federal appeals process takes a little bit of time. They're going to try to expedite this appeal, but I don't see us getting a decision on that until probably the summer. So what does that mean for the 5 enjoined regions? We're waiting until at least the summer. If the Second Circuit decides that the decision at the district court was not correct, then hopefully Western New York will have retail dispensaries and our card applicants and hopeful licensees will be able to get up and running. The second part of that, and Emily, I promise I'm almost done, guys, and then you can hear Emily talk and I'll just walk off the screen.
Please don't.
The second part of that is at 2 weeks ago's Cannabis Control Board meeting. Cannabis Control Board announced that they are taking the card program and they're expanding it from 150 licenses to 300 licenses, meaning that even though 5 of our 14 regions are enjoined, we're doubling the licenses that we're going to be awarded. So Western New York, where we were originally 11, we're 22 now. And then, I don't have the other 13 regions off the top of my head, but that's kind of the goal. So what that means to me, kind of reading the tea leaves a little bit, and again, this is my opinion, this is not legal advice, is the state thinks that they're going to be successful at the Second Circuit level, and they've really doubled down on their commitment to card applicants to give these folks the first crack at retail sales in the state. Now, importantly, the state has also they've published and received public comment on the first draft of their what's about 80% of regulations for the entire adult use market, meaning that, like, I like to remind folks, and Rachel has heard this from me a million times, the conditional market is a drop in the bucket compared to what this market will look like in 3 to 5 years. The conditional market are really the state's guinea pigs, for better or for worse. And then the hope is that in 5 years, when full licenses are up and running, there's going to be a lot more licensees across the state, and cannabis is going to be, you know, as easy to access and safe as alcohol is right now. Safe is obviously third-party tested, et cetera. Do consume responsibly, everyone. Because the intention for those regulations is to ultimately inform final applications for full licenses. We think that those are going to come on, like the regulations are going to be finalized this fall. So if you're going to apply for a full license or an annual license or a permanent license, a non-conditional license, we expect those regulations that will inform your application to be done by around Labor Day, with the application process taking place in the end of 2023 for licenses to come online, license applications, and then actually awarding the licenses to come online January 2024. That's my timeline. That's my update. I'm done. Emily, you're in charge. Great.
Oh, dude.
Bravo.
Right.
Thank you. All right. See, this is my God, I'm paying him under the table, by the way.
I couldn't memorize all that, so. Good
So
job, Joe.
thank you. So but thanks, Joe. You just showed off. We like your new jacket. It's a little bit more there's a little bit more flair than last year of your boxy suits. Yes, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. However, what the hell does it all mean and why do we care? And that's where Emily's here to say, look, retail dispensary applicants, licensees, future owners, you're going to have to get ready to actually get up and run. And a huge part of that, not to steal any of Emily's thunder, is look, there were lines wrapped around Housing Works, wrapped around SMAC, wrapped around Union Square Travel Agency, wrapped around Just Breathe in Binghamton, because people are excited about it. And you have these marquee events on these grand openings and everybody's fired up to buy cannabis. It's not about the grand opening as much as Emily will tell you, and not to steal your thunder, but it's about making sure that people come back and also figure out a way to get people to come to your store, whether it's a great brand name, whether it's a good program to keep customers coming back. And I want to talk about that. And this is where I really hand it over to Emily and say, all right, Emily, I know New York really well.
Yeah.
And while we dabble in other markets, our firm's specialty is in New York State, helping, we have learned the industry as it has kind of grown and taken different forms with our partners in the audience. Obviously, shout out to Forsetti Protection and Mario Rodriguez, Tyler Shaw at Range. We're doing our best in New York, right? But we need to figure out what to do. You've seen a lot of markets come online.
Yeah.
You're in 80% of dispensaries in the country.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some emerging market trends. So first of all, what's an emerging market versus a mature market? Because I think that's an important distinction to go through first.
Definitely. So I think we all know our mature markets are California, Colorado, places like that where the industry has just been around for a really long time. And then we do have our mid-tier markets, right? I'm from Boston. Please don't hold it against me, New Yorkers.
Best.
I'm from Boston, so the Massachusetts market, while it's been around for about 7 years, has still had its growing pains with rec and medical and everything as well. When we define emerging markets, we define that as any market that's just coming online with the medical program or just going recreational. So there's a lot of those that are happening right now. We just had, Connecticut, Rhode Island. I saw something last night about Texas decriminalizing, starting to move forward that process too, which is huge. So an emerging market is anybody that's just kind of launching with a new level to their cannabis program. So I've been with Spring Bay for 2 years now. I run their emerging markets for retail. And one of the things that I see generally happen when a market goes rec is there's lots of excitement. And then you get the rule book and the rule book is thick and there's a lot of scary language in it. And it's more, you can't do this than you can do this. And I think that's where someone like Joe and his firm come in to help you kind of interpret those regulations and stuff, because while a lot of the language looks really scary, they're actually just trying to define, the parameters for what you guys can and can't do. That being said, parameters often have room for, nudging and what have you. So part of what I see generally is a state goes live with a rec program. They drop a book full of rules that it's almost impossible to operate a retail business with some of the rules that we're seeing in those regulations right now. Rules against advertising, rules against marketing, rules around customer data, all of that stuff. So it's really hard to operate, run a retail business with all of those in place. So one of the things that I tend to see is that, and I do apologize for the hoarse voice. I came right from the New England Cannabis Convention to here, so I've been talking for days. One of the things that I tend to see is major pushback from the community against these regulations, and that actually does a lot to shift them as well. So prime example is the state of Missouri. When the state of Missouri went recreational with cannabis, they dropped regulations very similar to New York, actually. Not a lot of people know that. Like, it basically, the term I like to use is like, they allowed for word of mouth dispensaries. Word of mouth dispensaries, like there's no advertising, you can't, put any signs outside, all of this stuff's like, you only know it's a dispensary if you know it's a dispensary. So, they dropped kind of all those. They had lots of strict marketing rules against loyalty programs, customer retention programs, very similar again to kind of some of the rules that we're seeing here. Through a couple of the trade organizations in the state, there was so much pushback on a retailer level that those regulations changed in 5 months. So they went from basically not being able to advertise, marketing, do anything like that, to having those regulations overturned in 5 months and being able to actually, engage with their customer base and work on that retention as more and more competition comes online. Because that's one of the biggest sticking points. Yes, the couple dispensaries that are open in New York now are getting amazing foot traffic. That's absolutely true because that's what's available to people. However, if you're just starting out in the space, know that you're going to go up against all of those hundreds of hopeful applicants, hopeful licensees that are also just as hopeful as you are. So it's really important to prepare yourself way in advance, from not only what your operations are going to look like and what your retail flow is going to look like and all that stuff, but how are you going to maximize every engagement that first, every person that walks in that door, you want them to come back again and again and again. And how are you going to do that if everyone around you is trying to do the same thing? And you guys would be shocked at how many dispensaries I talk to on a weekly basis that are 3 months open, 6 months open, a year open, that haven't done a lick of marketing. And they're like, why isn't this working? And I have to sit there and be like, well, organic foot traffic is great. Well, my location's great. Awesome. So is XYZ dispensary down the street. Their location is great as well. So what are you doing to differentiate yourself? And there's actually tools, and we'll get into the platform a little bit and we'll talk about some of the things that we can do, but there's tools out there, Springbig included, that can help you prepare and help you start with things like customer acquisition before your doors are even open. Start sourcing a customer base before you're open. Why would you wait on that? Don't wait till day one to have someone be interested in coming through your front door. Do it 3 months before you open, 6 months before you open. So that's kind of like starting to get into that, emerging markets trends, because I promise you, even if it seems really restrictive right now, it's going to change. Those regulations are going to loosen because the community is going to, basically demand it.
I have a comment, I have a follow-up on that and a related question. So in New York State, Cannabis Control Board just finalized our packaging, labeling, marketing, and packaging, labeling, marketing, and advertising regulations. There are 2 sections of what is now the cannabis law in New York State, and where packaging and labeling kind of deals with, obviously, with products, and that's more of a cultivation and processing issue. The marketing and branding, that's where really we see the first time that retailers are addressed. And it's, what sort of signage can you have outside? And, while public comment is closed, official public comment on regulations that's required by the New York State Administrative Code and all this legal jargon, right? It sounds like the feedback period is only just going to begin, because really, I think that, the message I'm hearing from you, Emily, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, is just because the regs are final or the law is final in some circumstances doesn't mean the industry isn't going to need to adapt, right?
Yeah.
I always frame this as, the MRTA is 2 things. It's a tax bill and a social equity bill. And for everybody who's been on one of these presentations before, or at least met with me, you've heard me say this many, many, many times before. The state's got to make tax revenue. And in order to make tax revenue, it needs to have successful businesses. It doesn't need to set its businesses up to fail. So if you can't market, the state needs to hear that you can't market. You need to get people in your doors. And that's a critical piece of information. So, there's other feedback mechanisms, and I think what I praise OCM. I'm one of the few who praise OCM for being very responsive thus far. When we have questions, I think card applicants especially, but even, our initial cultivator and processor applicants, if there were questions on an application, the state needed to get these guys up and running because you're super important, as will the full or permanent or annual license. I'm going to go with permanent licensees from now on, just so you guys, I don't have to say 3 different words. But, give that feedback and talk to OCM and find other, I think that there's been a lot of good camaraderie amongst similar licensees in the states. Okay, cultivators didn't like the canopy caps that happened early on in the industry. So they said, hey, we need more than an acre to grow an acre of canopy. Right. Well, then the state was like, all right, let's kick it out to 3. Well, that's way too much. We're going to bring it back down to an acre and a half. But that extra half acre has meant the difference for a lot of folks. I know that hydrocarbon extraction has been an issue for processors. There's been a lot of dialogue between, certain trade associations and OCM. They're flexible on it. And I think that's going to happen with the card program as, look, there's only 4 open in the state. There's going to be 300. The state intends there to be 300 card dispensaries, let alone, you got to think at least double, if not triple that in the permanent market, right? So that's my comment on it is public comment doesn't ever really end, even though public comment is officially over. But my question for you, Emily, is in like you said, let's take the, Joe dispensary owner. I'll use myself as a bad example. So I own a dispensary and I'm like, I don't need to market. I've got an awesome
location
on the location and I have like some Facebook presence that isn't hopefully going to get suspended by, Meta or what publicly traded knowledge is not all that well. Is it due to fear of the fear or not misunderstanding, but like, hey, there's a million regs. Like, why are dispensaries not marketing early on? Like, is that something that I, as a lawyer, need to say, hey, there's 300 pages of regs, but you should be doing X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
Or is that like, is it a combination of things? Like, what do you see as like kind of the most consistent reason for not getting out there and not branding or marketing or however you want it? This is your area, so I don't.
Yeah, I think it's a couple things, right? First of all, starting a retail dispensary is expensive and it's time consuming, and you have to do a lot already within regulations just to get the operations up and running, right? So a lot of people are just focused on where's my building and, what is my security and what is my, tech that I need to run the business, like just point of sale transaction wise, like what do I need? And that alone is a very overwhelming process if you don't have experts in the field helping you, or if you don't have someone to like guide you in that way. And there's a lot of really good operations companies out there that can kind of help you map that out. And then I think the secondary step is, honestly, it's so funny too, because it's like the realm that I work in, but marketing tends to be an afterthought, which is kind of crazy in the world that I live in. But it's simple facts that good marketing leads to good sales. I'm not saying you're not going to have organic traffic. I'm not saying that you're not going to do well just by opening up and stuff like that. But I'm saying is, are you going to do better than the guy down the street? Are you going to have his customers, or are your customers going to be his customers, basically? So I think it's a combination of, there's just a lot to do to open a dispensary that marketing sometimes takes a back seat. And then additionally, it's interpreting the regs. It's exactly what you said. It's having a really good understanding of what you can do and what you can't do. And it actually, can I read the
I was going to make the transition, but you can do it.
I'm going to read it. So I'm going to read this regulation that Joe so kindly highlighted for me here, because I find it really interesting. And it's kind of where our company starts to step in. So the regulation is, a licensee cannot retain a customer's personal information for marketing and advertising purposes unless the customer consents to the information being retained for this reason. So that sounds really scary, right? That sounds like we can't collect their data. It's not allowed. How would we get that information, right? We absolutely can't do that. In the realm of some of the tools that my company has, data collection is a huge part of this. And all of our tools for that are completely compliant and certified. So it's not just like, you come into the dispensary, oh, what's your phone number, and like write it down and stuff like that. The resources that we use opt your customers in so you can use their data for a marketing standpoint. And it's as easy as filling out a join form. That's it. You're like, hey, you want to sign up for our newsletter? You want to sign up for our, what do we call it? Customer retention.
Oh, it's
creative.
Branded. Yeah, I'm selling.
We can't use the word loyalty programs, right? Joe and I came up with creative customer retention programs. So we can't say loyalty, right? So do you want to be a part of our whatever, right? Our I think, I don't know what, there's some of the language is allowed and some of it's not, it's like club or team or something like that. But do you want to be a part of our dispensary program, essentially? That's the easiest way to get people's information. Of course they do, because not only do they want to learn more about you as a business or learn more about cannabis as a product, but they also want to participate in whatever you guys are offering. It's social psychology. People want, you know, not necessarily stuff for free, but people want extras. You know, that's just like a core mark of social psychology when it comes to retail is people want extras. And any dispensary worth its salt, even within a restrictive regulations, they're gonna have to have some kind of extras in order to differentiate. So what does that mean when it comes to New York and the regulations? I think a really good example of this is looking at the Massachusetts market. What? Oh, sale.
This is what Emily was talking about.
Yeah.
So here's what you can't, here's what the guidance document to card licensees says. If you can read it or pick your favorite terms.
Licensees cannot advertise giveaways, discounts, price reductions, points-based reward systems, customer loyalty programs, including to, but not limited to, by using the words sale, free, price drop, or discount on a menu at any communications to customers or elsewhere. This does not prohibit, this is the important part, this does not prohibit licensees from changing the price of cannabis products or otherwise discounting products. Again, that's a confusing and scary, yeah, you got a question?
I got a gray area here.
Gray area? We love a gray area.
So
We
what
all
if you
live in a
call
gray
it
area.
like crap, acronym for like customer retention advertising program,
Love
and
it.
just go free crap,
Free crap.
sign up for free crap.
Done.
There's
Well,
a
yeah.
hot
I think
mic, you gotta keep
Let's,
that.
yeah, I was gonna say, keep that to yourself.
Yeah.
That's genius.
I'm saying, is that allowed?
Sure, why not? You're not saying loyalty program, are you?
Say advertising program.
That's not an advertising.
All right, all right, cool.
Exactly, so,
Free crap.
yeah, no, I like that, that's good, that's good. But like reading that paragraph in regulations, it just, again, it seems finite. It seems like completely restricted to the nth degree. There's very similar language in the adult use regs in Massachusetts. However, people are actually doing a lot of different things. They're not advertising it as traditional loyalty, but there are some other things you can do. You can incentivize on merch, paraphernalia, brandware, glassware, all of that kind of stuff, rolling papers, lighters, like whatever it is, people like stuff like that. And especially in the cannabis community, people like stuff like that. They want to wear the merch of the first few retailers that open up in New York because they say that they can. Like I was one of the first in that, like, yeah, of course they do. So the other thing, and people are getting really, really creative. I'm seeing people partner with businesses outside of the traditional cannabis space in order to run incentive programs, you know, crap programs, if you will. I like that term now. I think I'm gonna coin that.
Free crap.
Free crap programs. Basically, so plugging in anything for, you know, hosting the artwork of local artists and auctioning it off. I've seen people do cannabis events and using either, you know, a points or visit based system to attract attention to those events. So that can be like educational events. There's people that do like cannabis cooking classes, beverage classes, like just different kinds of things in order to incorporate something that isn't product related. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing they have problem with is if it's product related. So in turn, just kind of expand what you guys think that means. And what I think is really cool about this, and what I think is really cool about the experience-based element for marketing is, you know, no one has the relationships that you guys have. I've seen people plug in, you know, coffee shops, restaurants, bars, different kinds of like cafes and things. And, you know, 100 points gets you 10% off Timmy's tacos on a Tuesday, like that kind of thing, like plugging in community level businesses with their own businesses. But again, there's nothing wrong with it, because they're not touching the product. They're not touching the product. And I think what's so cool about that too, is that, you know, like I said, no one has the relationships you guys have. No one has the story that you guys have. And if you use those elements to take the time to build something out like that before you're open, when you open, you're going to have something different than anybody else around you. And it is worth taking the time to do that, because everyone else is just going to get scared by that paragraph and not do anything. Right. And so it really, when you ask me, like, why is it important for people to start? This is why. This is how you're going to differentiate yourself truly. So that was like my little spiel on it. But basically, yeah.
I have a question.
A question.
when you're done.
Okay,
Like, well,
perfect.
just finish your thought.
Perfect. But yeah, so that's how a lot of people in, the adult use space in Massachusetts are kind of getting, I don't want to say getting around the regulations, because it's not around the
It's creative,
regulation.
it's entrepreneurship.
It's
right?
entrepreneurship. It's creating new ideas around the restrictive regulations. And let's be honest, we all live in a really great space in this industry. So as long as you're not like directly going against the regulations, but you found some other creative way to kind of loop customer retention in and pay attention to them in different ways and stuff like that, it can be very, very beneficial as a business. But
Before Serene, give me one, I'm sorry, I just want to put one point on top of it and then we'll take the question. What's really unique, I think, about the card, if you're a card licensee and you haven't read this guidance for adult use retail dispensary doc, which I'm sure comes across as really nicely on the screen. If you haven't read this, read it and then read it again and then read it again. Because there's some really interesting stuff. Also look at the FAQ doc that's on cannabis.ny.gov under the licensing tab. What I feel like I read it and, whether I'll look at it for a client and look up a discrete issue, I'm not always, nobody's paying me to read 35 pages of guidance or paying me to find a quick answer or the right answer quickly. And so I was looking back at it, during this, in preparation for this presentation, and what I found, it was a stem from a conversation I had with a very handsome friend of mine who might be in the audience, is the capability of the card licensee is not just that of a singular retail dispensary. You have the ability to not just do delivery, but you can integrate, if you so choose, you have the capital and you have the correct space that will be secured to do the on-site model. There are no on-site consumption regulations that were published in the first round of regulations by Office of Cannabis Management, meaning the first, what was originally 150 and is now 300 card licensees have the ability not just to retail the product either at their door or bringing it to the consumer's door, but you can kick some space out. And if you want to do your on-site consumption lounge, it has to be in adjacent premises. It can't be like down the street. But you're going to get the first crack at that as well, which I think is really exciting. And it's like, all right, well, maybe you've got Timmy's Tacos coming through for a food truck experience. Go to the dispensary, grab a taco, and then hit the on-site consumption lounge in the back. And you're experiential. Look, I'm not the marketer, I'm the lawyer, but I know what the regs allow you to do. And I think that that's going to be that's something that folks can potentially take advantage of.
100%. And to just build on that, and then let's definitely answer the
We're
question.
not ignoring you, Serene. We're not ignoring the question.
It's not me, yeah.
First of all, I think it's consumption lounge and then the taco truck, but
Fair enough.
that would be my personal.
I would
flow.
have to plan ahead.
That would be my personal flow, but also using those different kinds of avenues as well, like you can incorporate that into your customer retention. You should be incorporating that into your customer retention. Make a fun space, make it a place they want to return to time and time again, and then use digital marketing tools to, advertise it as much as you can, educate people on your space, educate people on your products, and build out, and we'll talk about the tuck in a little bit, but there's like all these customer facing elements that you guys can use to like incorporate that in your business and just have a touch point with them throughout the entire customer life cycle. Crazy, but.
So, are you allowed to use the mail? I mean, it's a federal.
Mail?
Yeah, like if you wanted to mail out coupons or something coming soon. Like if you're in a neighborhood and you're opening in 3 months and you want to let the neighbors know, hey, I'm here.
No.
Can I mail them something? Because that is a federal program.
There's a reg on like pamphlet marketing. I don't have it on total recall,
Okay.
and I apologize. I will look it up and I'll let you know.
Okay.
Serene, hit me with that question.
Two things, comment from the audience is creative compliance is what you can call it for the workaround. Creative
Love it.
compliance.
Love that.
So we're not, does the audience member have any thought on free crap?
There was surprisingly, I thought the chat would be a flutter with free crap and that's a pretty great one.
We're not doing a good job of engaging the audience as well. We've got a great vibe in the room right now, everybody. But if you need more attention, let's get the Q&A hot.
And the question is, it appears the medical market in New York can advertise sales. How can they do that versus the adult use?
Yeah, so that's interesting because I read the adult regs and I read the medical regs today as well for points of comparison. And there's a lot of verbiage in the medical regs that read around like the like medical educational standpoint when it comes to advertising. Like if they talk about a product, they have to talk about the health benefits, and it has to come from like a verified source, and like people could check this source, which also I find absolutely bananas because there is no one scientific source of truth on, you know, cannabis terpenes and cannabinoids right now. Like the research is still, so I'm like, who are they fact checking that with? I'm just not sure. But I think it's because it's looking at more of a holistic side of the industry, more of a medicine type side of the industry. So, I mean, it's the same in Massachusetts as well. You can run traditional loyalty programs and advertise traditionally in the medical space in Massachusetts. As to the why behind that, I
think it's a broad term too. Not to kind of steal this from you, but you know, we were pretty close to a couple medical dispensaries, and I'm not seeing a ton of billboards or.
No, I don't think billboards are allowed still. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There's billboards allowed.
But
There will be billboards allowed for retailers in New York State.
yeah,
But I don't know. I'll admit I did not look at the medical advertising regulations before this. My apologies to the chat.
do your homework.
I know, seriously, it should just end it.
No, but I think part of it probably runs in the vein.
I'm a huge drama queen, in case you guys are wondering.
Runs in the vein of like, when we're talking about patients and not adult use customers, which sounds like a really dumb distinction, and I apologize for that, but the medical market has been around for a lot longer. And in order to be a medical patient, the end consumer has to go through a process to be a medical patient, right? And so as a result, it's a more structured way that they can run retail. So I would imagine it has something to do with that, where I mean, when you open up an adult use market, I think the thing that scares states is they just don't want it to be a free for all. Like which is very ironic considering how they limit things in like this, you know, weird cyclical way, because like if they did open it up a little bit more and let people run retail a little bit more traditionally, they would make more money on a state level as well. It never ceases to baffle me. But I think it has to do more with like there's like the medicine of it all. And not to say that adult use can't take advantage of the health benefits of cannabis, obviously, but I think that's why it's a little less restricted, is because it's kind of funneled into that vein. I hope that answers your question.
So Emily, we kind of talked about compliant. We've talked about compliant marketing. Yikes. Sorry, everybody. We've talked about compliant marketing a lot. We've talked about a lot of regs, guidance docs. Call your friendly neighborhood cannabis attorney if you need help interpreting. But let's talk about some things that you guys specialize in, whether that's text, push, email marketing. I'm just reading off the sheet, so I have an idea as to what that means, but can you take us through that? And then afterwards, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite topic, which is social media and cannabis, and, you know, some changes that we're seeing, but also some restrictions. So like, you know, I'll set you up for the text, push, and email, and then I'll bring it home on social afterwards.
Sounds good. So essentially, you know, once you do obtain that data, once someone is in your free crap program, what do we do with it? How do we market to them? And what are the regulations around that specifically? Because guess what? You can't just send out a text that says, and I'm gonna like cite one of my favorite edible brands right now, but hey, 20% off Betty's Eddies today, you stop on in, something like that. Like you can't do that in our space. And why can't we do that in our space? Why can't we, do text marketing in a traditional way? Because phone carriers are monitored on a federal level. And like, that's something that a lot of people don't know. Like there's a whole monitoring system dedicated to not only screening the content that comes through text itself, but then cross-referencing that from an SEO perspective and looking online and seeing if that is associated with a cannabis business. It's very granular and very insane. So how do we do that? We do have a fully compliant process on our platform to do that. And part of the reason that we did that is we didn't shy away when the regulations got really strict. So we took the time as a corporate company to take all of the necessary compliance steps, register the phone numbers we use, register the process we use, change the way that we needed to do things in order to remain compliant, not to get around it, but in order to remain compliant. So if any of you have signed up with the dispensaries texting program before, you've probably seen It's like a notification message with a link. That's the only way to do it these days, frankly. It's the only way to do it these days. It's the only way to get the content across. That being said, if you put information behind a link, there's actually a lot more marketing opportunity with that in and of itself. So in our process, how we do text marketing, are you holding up a text for me right now?
I'm looking it up. That's pretty big.
We got an audience
pretty big, yeah.
participation. Thank you.
That's Cannabis. I just got a text from.
That's Cannabis. Yeah, so as Tyler so kindly showed here, basically, if you have a compliant way to get the message to the customer's phone, and then you're able to do a lot more with it from a link process, in that link, they can go to any of your other avenues. So they can click out to your website, click out to your shopping cart, click out to your Instagram page, your Twitter, click out to anywhere else you want them to go. If you're hosting an event, you want to like gather an RSVP list, click them out to that. You know what I mean? So while it initially seems very restricted and it's a little annoying to have to deal with like a link and click process, it actually, I think, you know, opens up a couple more doors as far as like once they click, they're in. You've got their attention, you've got their like customer, basically their customer journey in lock, and they're just gonna, everything they need from you is right there. So that's one way. Email marketing. Don't laugh. People still do it. Okay. Email marketing actually caters to a lot of, you know, different demographics, people who don't feel as comfortable clicking on text. And that's part of the reason that our company gives so many different avenues for communication, is because we want to hit it for each demographic that's going to walk into your door. So email marketing is still very much a thing. We have very successful email marketing rates with the software that, you know, with our software. Texting is good. And so what else can we do? Anybody?
Yeah.
Well, not, I guess
Push.
I snail. Thank you.
It's on the
Push.
sheet.
Yeah, it's on the sheet. Push notifications.
I mean, yeah.
Where do those live? In an app, right? So one of the most popular features that we at Spring Big that we're doing for people right now is we're building them custom apps for their dispensaries. That means everything your dispensary needs is in a mobile app. You get your own product page on the App Store. People can download it, leave reviews like any other app that lives on your smartphone. And I don't know about you, but I'm glued to mine. It's over there. I'm having anxiety not holding it. And it's like, I use an app for everything, for my work, for my personal life, for social media, for everything. So it's a very familiar way to plug people in. And in the app, it has full capabilities from, if you do have any parameters for a free crap program, we can tier that out for you right there. It's completely co-branded to the business. It looks and feels like the store. Additionally, that's where like the e-commerce portion comes into play. They can make orders. So this is helpful both for retail, but also for like delivery businesses and stuff as well. All of that lives right there. And then the communications portion, you know how like Facebook has Facebook Messenger, Instagram has a messaging section as well. We have that space in our apps. And the reason for that is we're working with push notifications. Again, Emily, why is this important? Push notifications are censored differently than text messages in cannabis. It's a really, really good communication tool because they're not going through a regulated phone carrier system. There's nothing that's monitoring it that granularly, at least for now. So we have more freedom of voice. And also, just transparently, text marketing is one of the more expensive external ways to communicate with your customer base. Push notifications is a lot cheaper because, again, we're not pushing them through a regulated resource. So, you know, giving those three avenues for different communication channels and then also expanding into social media, you're able to cover all of those demographics like with one marketing platform.
One quick question.
Yeah.
So you do marketing, but you also said you have a point of sale, CRM?
Close. So we integrate with your point of sale.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we integrate. And so we push pull that information and we're able to look at not only members who necessarily have signed up for like your marketing communications, but we do have visibility on like overall retail customer data as well. So we're able to show you like what's the participation with people who are signed up for your free crap program? What's the participation of people who are just coming in off the street, first time in your store? You know, we can track all of that and then use that from a marketing standpoint. And personally, I think like the way we segment different customer bases, it actually makes the end user like end consumer feel very personally catered to, you know, because you're only sending them relevant information to them. So
Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah, so big
Talk about
news, mid-February, Twitter is the first social media site that's allowing manufacturers of products to directly market their products on their platform. Hey, we have this cannabis infused beverage. You should buy it. Like in the same way that you have beer ads or soda, pop ads, all that good stuff. I had to put my accent back on there for a second, remember where I live and how I talk. Which is a humongous change, right? Because, you know, the amount of stories we hear from people who are trying to develop a page, get a great following on Instagram, you know, 10,000 followers, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, whatever. And then their stuff gets banned right away when they've been posting, you know, you develop this customer loyalty. Again, I'm the JD in the room. I'm not the MBA. There's a lot of smarter business people who can speak this lingo better, but the amount of times we hear, Joe, my page is gone. What do I do? And I'm like, you're not a hacker, are you? And they're like, no. It's okay. Well, I can send the general counsel of Instagram a nasty letter, but I doubt that it's going to be responded to. So yeah, you're in timeout for now. And they're like, but I didn't do anything wrong. I wasn't promoting. And unfortunately, when they're, you know, if the social media platform upon which you market or upon which you have your space determines that you have violated their community standards, you don't really have much recourse. If you want to try to sue Instagram for damage to your business, good luck, right? I mean, and that's the long and the short of it, which is obviously difficult because we know so many folks who will do. I mean, my brother goes to school in New England. He was at school in Boston. Now he's at school in Connecticut, and he really there are certain pages that he has found loyalty to because he likes the Instagram page, and they do. I mean, one of them did it like a 12 days of Christmas kind of deal where they had different promos. Now they were never giving, as I understand it, they were never giving away products. It was giving away merch, giving away the cool new sweater that they did, giving away a gift card, right? That's another potential avenue. Again, I need to look at the regs to see what the permissibility would be under New York law, but there's ways to do it. You're allowed to promote your brand, but I think the second that it goes from, hey, here's who we are as a brand, here's kind of our company ethos, think of all those really cool startup terms that I don't know, to hi, buy our 5-pack of pre-rolls for $25 at these 3 dispensaries. That's when you're going to get ripped, and that's when you're going to really struggle. So it's, you know, Emily made a point earlier that I think is really important, which is, look, this industry, and I had to learn this in my early days in the adult use space, which was there's a lot of risk tolerance because for the first time ever in the cannabis industry, there is a gray area, right? It was always black and white. You can't do any of this ever at any point or you are going to get arrested. Now it's all right, well, there's regs. And if there are holes in the regs, people see opportunity. And I had to learn that early on. Now, it's still my job as the attorney in the room and in the conversation to tell you where the field of play is and where the goalposts are and where you can't go outside of those lines. But the creativity, I think New York City has always encouraged creativity. If you've heard me talk about social equity plans, there is no specific requirements for the social equity plans that applicants will have to submit because, you know, for instance, if, you know, Tyler and Johnny are both going for dispensary licenses, Tyler's application in Hamburg is going to be a lot different than Johnny's in the city, right? Or vice versa. And the way that you can serve your community, whether through education or giving back or a percentage of proceeds or community programs, is going to be very different than somebody like Johnny and, you know, the experience that he and his team bring to the table. It's different for everybody. And so the state doesn't want to get in the way of successful businesses because it's, like we said before, they're incentivized to be successful. Yeah. Because it's tax revenue for the state that makes up for the budget losses that we saw during COVID.
Yeah. And I think also it's like you want to know where the goalposts are and where the parameters are. Absolutely. That's very important. I hope you know that neither Joe or I are advertising for you to just not pay attention to this stack of regulations, obviously. But it's important to know the goalposts. Also, hopefully have someone in your corner that can advocate on what's correct and what's not correct for you. And then having like the tool to be able to actually physically do that with, you know, like the technology behind it. But again, like from a you know, tech tool perspective, like Springbig, we are a compliant tool because we have gotten pretty much every accreditation you need. Like we're the only tech person in the space market here that has HIPAA compliance. We did that for the medical market. You know what I mean? So it's like you take all of the different compliance aspects and features, but then it's really up to you. And that's why we were talking about creativity earlier and paying attention to this early on before you open up your business. And I mean, heck, we even have an entire program dedicated just to help people with that. and it's free for now.
I have a question from the audience.
Yeah.
Can you sell on a website? Sorry if they missed it, but
You sell on a
website. I don't know if they mean
Like a shop.
on their own or maybe somebody else's where you're doing like a
Maybe the
partnership.
e-commerce.
Well, I mean, so that would be your e-commerce platform. So part of like, I think the marriage in from a technical space for a retailer is point of sale, e-com, marketing CRM. All of those three systems need to talk to one another. And so I would say that would be your e-com provider. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have a website. People can make orders, look at your products, everything on the website. There's no problems with that. As if you meant more of like a third party thing, that's where we get a little, I'm not sure, honestly.
Yeah, and then obviously, I mean, to state a very obvious thing, or what we hope is, Emily and I spent a lot of time talking about this earlier today in
Yeah.
a different meeting, but the cash issue with dispensaries, the cash debit card limitations, basically the dispensary space is still humongous. I'm sure Mario could tell you about every smash and grab that's happened in every legal state right now. And that's another thing that the industry is trying to work through. So it's not as easy as going on there with a credit card, throwing down your Amex, and then you've got $500 worth of product that shows up at your door the next day. There are hurdles to that.
Yeah.
That is not just another seminar. That is,
That's a
if you can
whole
figure that out,
day.
give me a call.
Yeah, if you figure that out,
What
Yeah.
about Bitcoin?
huh? Bitcoin,
You
pay
check-
for your weed with Bitcoin.
Yeah, can you charge?
Well,
like that?
Never looked at that before.
I've gotten just absolutely no idea, honestly. I mean, there's different, there's a lot of different technology that's trying to be developed for payments and stuff right now.
Right.
But I mean, think about what Bitcoin is, in
That's-
comparison
It's
to,
philosophical.
it's very philosophical. What is Bitcoin? It's like, cause I don't want to use the term like hypothetical money because I know that there's actual value associated with stuff like that.
Sure.
But it's more like, I think the easiest way for people to track it right now is cash or debit. And we've seen there's been a lot of debit issues over the last 6 months, especially for retailers and stuff like that. But frankly, like the credit cards of the world and other forms of payment are still being developed because they can't step into this space right now because of a federal compliance, obviously. Yes, Tyler,
I have a question.
do you have a question?
So
Well,
you
you're
talk
not allowed
about,
to ask questions of these presentations.
what?
I'm just kidding.
Oh, never mind. I'll wait till
First
the-
question of all presentations, Tyler Shaw, thanks for coming.
Yeah, you have the floor.
So you talk about a dispensary, start marketing 6-8 months before they're open.
Mhm,
No one really knows who they are.
mhm,
And obviously, if you want to sign up for Spring Big,
mhm.
you talked about you go in store and you can do a sign on.
Yeah.
How can you do that before they're actually open?
I'm so glad you asked. And it's almost why our companies partner together. So
Self-serving question.
well, he's not wrong, right? So and this kind of leads me in, I guess, to, if we can move away from payments for a second, leads me into like the physical, like how does the platform help you prep early on, right? And this is a big reason. This is why we have partner companies that, like range marketing people, like Joe, is we really, we want to set you up for success. And the nice thing about the way that our software works is we can pretty much plug it in anywhere. And so if you have a landing page that Tyler's building for you while your website is being built, we can plug our join form in there and say, hey, be one of the first, and I'm just using this like generally, but hey, be one of the first VIPs, get your gift on opening day, something like that, or get your free crap on opening day. Plug the join form in, and right from there, that's data, that's customer acquisition, that's data collection. You can do that whether it's a physical piece of marketing, a pamphlet, a flyer in a coffee shop, whatever it is, QR code, sign me up right then and there. So that's so we call it the greenhouse program, is our early retailer program. That's one of the first things that we can do is start with data collection. Anywhere you are marketing, and this is why marketing is so important prior to opening, anywhere you are marketing, anywhere that's visible, website, physical marketing materials, social media, all of that stuff, have an avenue where they can engage with you, have an avenue where they can make a touch point with you right away. So we do that. We also provide on-demand training for scoping out, just how to use the platform, building out loyalty programs or, whatever that might look like. And additionally, we do things like set up co-marketing initiatives with the vendors that you guys are going to be working with before you're open. So what that means that you're going to have free campaigns running for yourself because the vendors are going to pay for them. Free campaigns running from the second you open your doors, promoting even in an educational stance, the vendors that you work with. So that allows you to have a close relationship with them. And then additionally, it allows you to just push more product overall because you're using that as an educational tool as well as like, you know, promotive tool if you can. And yeah.
I'm sorry, I just want to add, can you pre-sell before you're open during your marketing campaign? No? Okay. Okay. Like an e-commerce website that says get a free t-shirt on opening day, just fill us out.
Well, yeah, so that we can do. But
Right.
maybe if you just don't say free t-shirt, just say t-shirt.
Just
But-
t-shirt, got you, grab a
but-
t-shirt.
Yeah, grab it to like stop in, you know,
You
what,
can't sell.
anything like that. It
No
could even
cannabis
just be like,
No cannabis
no
products.
cannabis
got it.
products. It could even just,
Go ahead.
I was
Oh,
gonna
sorry.
say, just like, it could even just be like, sign up, you know, for opening day, like it can be something very benign.
I got you.
Mhm.
Come pick up your t-shirt. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Sorry for the interruption.
No, you're
no, it's a good question because, you know, the line that you have to draw, and this is no free weed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No free
No
weed.
free weed,
No
guys.
free weed, no
We wish.
free cannabis products.
So
I
buy
don't,
one, get one free. No.
No buy one, get one free, no, so like we have an referral program built into our platform, and some markets we can be like, hey, free pre-roll for referring your friends. Mint.
Yeah.
Here, it's more like, you know, get a t-shirt for referring your friends.
come on by,
Come on back.
come on by, come
Send your
see
friends.
us.
What about
Some-
discounts?
Huh?
What about 20% discounts, 50%?
So this is where we start.
Advertise it, but no.
Yeah, so it's advertising. This is where we get sticky because I think it's modeled similarly off of the Massachusetts market. So one of the big compliance points in Mass is if a discount is being run or a price drop is being run, it has to be applicable for everybody. And I think there's a similar reg in the New York regulations, but the sticky point there is about like advertising the discount,
Mhm.
if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, I have adult use clients in Massachusetts that are running entire loyalty programs off of discounts that are available to everybody, just no one knows it. You know what I mean? So it's, again, this is a matter of kind of interpreting what we can do here, right? And again, that's not us, you know, trying to be shady about it at all. It just is exactly what it is. But yeah, so again, if you have the right tools and you have the right mindset, nobody is going to have your story. Nobody has your dispensary story. Nobody has your brand story. Nobody has, you know, anything to do with you but you. So why not? You're already investing all this money in the physical operation, invest the money and time in this part of it as well, because that's what's going to separate you from the dispensary down the street, 100%.
So in the interest of time, we're at the hour mark. It sounds like we've got two questions.
Okay.
And for everybody, just as the carrot to anybody who's online, if you come visit us in person, we do a really nice job after the fact of having a pretty fun pre-happy hour. We've got, you
Just looking
know,
at the beers over there.
yeah, I've been
Fancy.
staring, me and Rocco have been staring at the charcuterie there for about an hour. So I don't want to hold him up. We'll take the two questions in the chat and then I'll wrap it. And then if you have any questions, Serene's going to follow up with an email, which has my contact information, Emily's contact information about the companies, services we provide, et cetera. But like, if you're online, we miss you, come back. It's not that the room's empty. Like we said, great vibe in the room, but like, it's not just the presentation, it's the networking that happens afterwards. We got a ton of industry stakeholders here. So Serene, question one.
Emily, can you expand on how cannabis brands can help sponsor or supplement marketing campaigns for or through your dispensary, especially in regards to SMS marketing?
I absolutely can. So basically the way that it works on a physical process, we saw an actual disparity in the industry a little over a year ago between retailers and the brands that they worked with. And yes, they do shelf space in the store. Yes, they do marketing flyers, posters. Yes, they do pop-ups and stuff like that, but they weren't working together from a cohesive marketing standpoint, from a traditional marketing standpoint. So in Spring Big, we created a space in our backend platform called the Brands Marketplace. This is where you go on and you can select by state, different vendors that you guys work with. We have lots of brands on our brands marketplace now in all different states. And what you can do is you can request for that brand to sponsor your campaign. That means that that brand is going to pay for the entire cost of that marketing campaign, text, app, email, and be able to directly market their brand collateral to your customer base. Obviously, you guys, you work in conjunction here. You approve things before they go out. But the reason this is so important is, like, yes, they're paying for your campaign. You're saving a little money, you know, on the marketing platform itself, but also the brands are the best ambassadors of their own products. That's just factual. You know, they're the ones that created them. They're the ones that sold them to you to hold in your store, right? So they're the best ambassadors. And you as the retailer have direct access to the consumer. So by doing it this way, you know, we saw average basket sizes increase by 58% higher. Like it's absolutely crazy. And it was just this interesting space where like no one was doing it. So we were like, let's do it. You know, why not? And also that, you know, that can help if you're having trouble pushing products, if a product is new to your store and you're just not sure how to, you know, not advertise it, but educate people on it appropriately. Or if you just want a closer relationship with that vendor, I also think it leads a really nice like interpersonal flow with the vendors that you're working with too, because they're also a part of their conversation. Like, yeah, you're physically selling the product, but they're selling it to you. So it all needs to flow together.
And in New York State, cultivators and processors cannot do that direct
They
marketing.
cannot
right?
do that. And that's the stickiest bit. And that's why this is going to be really successful in this market when we can make it successful in this market,
Yeah.
because it gets around that.
It's, you know, it's relationship focused
Mhm.
for the supply side licensees. If you want to get your product into the dispensary, a lot of it's kind of granular, getting in with the bud tenders, right? That was a solution for a long time. Hopefully the bud tender likes XYZ product, therefore that's how I get my stuff
So
out.
many underhanded things
Yeah.
with bud tenders and vendors.
Yes.
Just like, oh, just try this, but it's for you. It's on the house. Don't worry about it. Like, you know, like
There's restrictions on that
There's
too.
restrictions on that too. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's not allowed.
Serene, you got question 2 for us?
I do.
Last question of the day. Thanks for-
Yes. Is it a thing to target cancer patients as a niche? Can we build a business around using multiple product types? Do you know of a successful dispensary doing this?
I'm gonna answer that very generally. The way that the adult use regs are written, you have to be very, 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 very careful with any sort of marketing or claims you're making with respect to products and anything health related. And so while I would love to give an in-depth answer, I'm gonna put our info in the show notes and let's talk about that offline, because I think it's a really good question. I'd love to help out whoever asked that. But right now that's going to take some thinking power. And I'm not saying that we're not going to do it right now, but that's a really involved question. The second that you get to these medical claims or anything on the medical side and the intersection of adult use
You have to be careful.
yeah, we got to be careful. So I'm not trying to dodge the question, but I am the lawyer on the panel, so I am dodging the question and saying a lot of words while doing it. With that, I'm gonna wrap it up.
Yeah.
Emily, is there anything you know, any last words? I feel like we covered a lot of territory.
We
here.
covered a lot, and I will say, like, please, anybody that's, you know, joining online or here in person, you know, I can't stress, and I feel like Joe can't stress enough, like focusing on these areas as you guys are opening your business. That just comes from my personal experience. I've never opened a dispensary before. However, I have seen people make this mistake again and again and again. And I talk to them every single week, and it becomes a conversation of, well, I should have invested in this, or like, how much money should I invest in this? And like, what is the marketing dollars that I should be spending and all that stuff. And the fact of the matter is, there's services out there, there's platforms out there like Spring Bake that have programs in place for you right now that are either very minimal cost. I mean, we're running a promotion at the moment where our greenhouse program, our early retailer program, is completely for free until after the first 2 months that you're open. You don't have to pay anything until you've already got money coming in the door. And I feel like if you have people like that in your corner, tech like that in your corner, you know, and then additionally, people who can help you just interpret how you're going to go about running the retail side of your business, use those tools, seek out those tools, because they are out there. Don't just not look at it until opening day, because I promise you, it's gonna be a bigger problem on the back end, you know? Marketing's important.
Yeah, I think, look, I'm the lawyer, so I don't have anything to rap about marketing other than just make sure that you do it by the book, because while the state has a vested interest in awarding a lot of licenses and getting businesses open, they also have a vested interest in making sure that the rules are followed.
Yes.
And if the rules don't get followed, you put the one thing at risk that you cannot afford to lose as a licensee. We can talk about all the money that you spend, et cetera, et cetera. If you lose your license or you get your license suspended, none of this matters, right? So that's the concern there. And while I think there's been some, I don't want to say wiggle room, but OCM has been willing to work through the early growing pains of the industry. And it will, as more retail dispensaries come on and when the card program evolves, right? We only have 4 dispensaries, but you gotta play OCM's game. You gotta play Cannabis Control Board's game.
You do.
And if as long as you're in that field and you're not trying to take, there's a difference between entrepreneurship, you know, calculated risk taking and ignoring the rules and the regs. And unfortunately, because we're at a law firm, I have to say that, but it's the truth of the matter. This is an incredibly heavily regulated industry.
Yeah.
You have to paper everything. You got to go by the book as best as you possibly can. And
lean on the experts, lean on the people who've been in this space for a while.
that's why we do it, right? So, by the way, I believe the greenhouse program that Tyler and Emily have spoken about today, we talked about that in presentation number 3, which is available on the Lipus Matthias YouTube channel. Check it out. All of our presentations are on there, from, you know, staffing and security with Mario and Lauren and Tom, to real estate, environmental and zoning, the marketing presentation that we did back in the fall, and then you know, our 4th presentation that we did on kind of like what lessons learned from 2022, which is the longer version of the quick recap that I did, all available for free. We're around. Love to talk to you. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thank you guys.